stretched and that Ukraine's industrial defense base is strengthened. I am thinking in particular of drones here. This is in our mutual interest, and I intend to travel to the frontline member states in the coming weeks. At the same time, we continue to support Ukraine's path to its membership in the European Union. This in itself is also a security guarantee. My second point, with regards to any territorial questions in Ukraine, our position is clear. International borders cannot be changed by force. These are decisions to be made by Ukraine and Ukraine alone. And these decisions cannot be taken without Ukraine at the table. My third and final point, as long as the bloodshed in Ukraine continues, Europe will maintain diplomatic and in particular economic pressure on Russia. We will continue to strengthen sanctions. We have adopted 18 packages so far, and we are advancing preparation for the 19th. This package will be forthcoming in early September. We know that sanctions are effective. We have already put Russia's immobilized assets to work for the benefit of Ukraine, and we will continue to put pressure on Russia's war economy to bring President Putin to the negotiation table. We're working with you, Volodymyr, and President Trump in this sense, and we will discuss all these topics and others in our joint meeting at the White House tomorrow. These are challenging times. Only Ukraine can choose its own destiny, but Ukraine can always count on Europe. Thank you so much.
All right, wanted to play those comments there. Before we had played Zelensky's comments, we heard from Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission president. Wanted to make sure we got those on for you right here, as they are now in that virtual meeting with the leaders of France, as well as Germany and the UK. Now, if you did miss the news conference on Friday between President Trump and President Putin, it was fairly short. So I do want to play it for you right here on Live Now from Fox.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly. And I think that's some kind words that we can say to each other. We're separated by the Strait of Bering, though there are 2 islands only between the Russian island and the US island. They're only 4 kilometers apart. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact. It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the US, and many positive events have to do with that territory. Still, there is tremendous cultural heritage back from the Russian America. For example, Orthodox churches and a lot of more than 700 geographical names of Russian origin. During the Second World War, it was here in Alaska that was the origin of the legendary air bridge for the supply of military aircraft and other equipment under the Lend-Lease program. There was a dangerous and treacherous route over the vast emptiness of ice. However, the pilots of both countries did everything to bring closer the victory. They risked their lives and they gave it all for the common victory. I was just in the city of Magadan in Russia, and there is a memorial there dedicated to the Russian and the US pilots. And there are 2 flags, the US flag and the Russian flag. And I know that here as well, there is such a memorial. There is a military burial place several kilometers away from here. The Soviet pilots are buried there who died during that dangerous mission. We're thankful to the citizens and the government of the U.S. for carefully taking care of their memory. I think that's very worthy and noble. will always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship that supported each other and facilitated each other. I'm sure that this heritage will help us rebuild and foster mutually beneficial and equal ties at this new stage, even during the hardest conditions. It is known that there have been no summits between Russia and the US for 4 years, and that's a long time. This time was very hard for bilateral relations, and let's be frank, they have fallen to the lowest point since the Cold War. I think that's not benefiting our countries and the world as a whole. It is apparent that sooner or later we had to amend the situation to move on from the confrontation to dialogue. And in this case, a personal meeting between the heads of state has been long overdue. Naturally, under the condition of serious and painstaking work, and this work has been done in general. Me and President Trump have very good direct contact. We've spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone. And special envoy of the president, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time. And you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation. However strange it may sound in these conditions, we have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the US. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the US, there was a so-called international date line. I think you can step over literally from yesterday into tomorrow. And I hope we'll succeed in that in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the US. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. And I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelenskyy and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here, Scott and John Radcliffe. Thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here. And I think, everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time. And we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. It made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all. But we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax. But what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss. But especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I can see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so ending that news conference there, not taking any questions from reporters, but President Trump and President Putin coming together after that nearly 3-hour meeting that they did have on Friday. Tomorrow's meeting will be between President Trump and Zelenskyy there at the White House, and will also include European leaders. President Trump posting moments ago here on Truth Social saying it's incredible how the fake news violently distorts the truth when it comes to me. There's nothing I can say or do that would lead them to write or report honestly about me. I had a great meeting in Alaska on Biden's stupid war, a war that should have never happened. Again, we will have coverage of tomorrow's meeting with Zelenskyy right here all throughout the day on Live Now from Fox. Going to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break. A lot more coverage coming up in just a few. Stay with us here on Live Now from Fox.
Can't help this region of the state, and quite frankly, all parts of West Virginia remain safe and strong. So it's great to be up here again today, and now I'm happy to turn the podium over to Major General Jim Seward. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. As the Governor said, the National Guard stands by ready to assist where we can with the ICE mission. The National Guard is uniquely qualified for this role because of our dual mission supporting state and federal entities. And we briefed the Governor that we have 175 certified law enforcement officers that will be going through this training to assist ICE where they are needed. The DoD is actively providing resources to support the interagency partners and leading the response to the declared national emergency. We will serve President Trump and Governor Morrisey within the bounds of the law and protecting West Virginians. Thank you.
Right.
Colonel.
Thank you, Governor. I'm Jim Mitchell with State Police. We are very excited to be able to help the governor in this initiative. Every member of the West Virginia State Police are extremely dedicated to the citizens of the state. I personally believe we have one of the greatest states in the country. And this is another way that some very highly trained professional law enforcement officers in the state police and can assist in further protecting the citizens of our state. And we are very excited about complete cooperation and collaboration with ICE. And we hope that this sends a message to people throughout West Virginia that if you're illegal, if you're committing crimes, that is not welcomed here in this state. And we're, again, honored to be able to participate in this program. So thank each of you, and thank you, Governor.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, folks. We're excited at DCR to be part of this. Thank you for being here. This program enables our division to serve and execute administrative warrants for criminal aliens who currently are in our custody. It's a powerful tool that allows us to work closely in collaboration with federal immigration authorities. That's not just good policy, it makes sense. And that's what we're here to do, is make sense of the madness that we saw over the last 4 years. By preventing the premature release of potentially dangerous individuals, we reduce the risk to our communities, and we make use of our law enforcement resources. It's about being smart, efficient, and proactive. The 287G program directly supports the mission of the West Virginia Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation, which is to enhance public safety, to promote accountability among offenders, and to facilitate their successful reintegration into society. You see, it's not just about enforcement, it's about responsibility, rehabilitation, and results. And let me be clear this morning. This program helps protect the citizens of this great state from gang activity, from drug-related crimes, violent offenses, and other dangers that threaten our public safety. It's one more way that we can help make West Virginia a better place to live, a better place to work, and a better place to raise a family. Thank you.
Great. Joe?
Good morning, everybody. We are proud to partner with Governor Morrisey, the West Virginia National Guard, the West Virginia State Police, and the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation through the 287G program. This program is going to enable officers to enforce certain aspects of immigration laws. These will include the ability to identify, process removable aliens with pending or active criminal charges, enforce limited immigration authorities with ICE oversight during routine police duties, and to serve and execute administrative warrants on removable aliens in the regional jail and state jail systems. These programs are consistent with President Trump's January 20th, 2025 executive order number 14159, protecting the American people against invasion. This executive order requires ICE to authorize state and local law enforcement officials, as the Secretary of Homeland Security deems qualified and appropriate, under Section 287G of the Immigration and Nationality Act, to the maximum extent permitted by law. The participating state and local agencies signed a memorandum of agreement with ICE that, among other things, dictates the requirements, policies, procedure, the personnel, the training, the expenditures, and the liability of the 287G program between ICE and these law enforcement agencies. As Governor Morrisey had stated, ICE has 3 287G program models, all of which work under direct ICE supervision. The jail enforcement model, the task force model, and the warrant service officer program. ICE trains 287G officers on immigration law, multicultural communications, and avoiding racial profiling. The 287G program helps promote public safety. Within the agreement, these law enforcement agencies and ICE will work together to deport removable aliens from the state. There is no way that all these operations could take place without partnering with West Virginia. And this memorandum of agreement will help ICE to effect its mission in the state to protect the homeland by identifying, arresting, and removing individuals who undermine the safety of our communities, national security, and the integrity of U.S. immigration laws. These include individuals who are unlawfully present in the United States, pose a threat to national security, public safety, or otherwise are in violation of our immigration laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as per tradition, love to turn it over. Any comments?
I would like to thank all of you for your diligent efforts to protect my family, my friends, my state, and my country. I really appreciate you guys for that.
Thank you. Really appreciate you coming. Any comments, thoughts?
I'll just say real quickly, everyone loves to hear from a politician, but I appreciate the governor get behind President Trump in this. And I was just reading today and yesterday, actually, 2 million fewer illegal immigrants in the country than a year ago. And 1 million illegal immigrants have self-deported and left by themselves. And we are a nation of immigrants, but we want immigrants who love America and who will fly the American flag and not the flag of their country of birth. This is America. Let's love America. So thank you, Governor Morrisey, and all you men that I admire so much and appreciate so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. And let me say that the success from the Trump administration with respect to addressing the really difficult immigration issues, that's a story that needs to be told far and wide across the country. It's not getting enough attention. I know that I consistently, during the Biden administration, we chastised some of the folks. Half the networks weren't even covering what was going on, and West Virginians were being slaughtered. And I said, that's absolutely unacceptable. Now, you have an administration that is doing an unbelievable job, and they're restoring sanity to the border. That's saving people's lives. I want to make sure people know about that. And that's why I'm very interested. We're full-throated. We're all in to work and partner with ICE and this president, because it does make a difference on the ground. And so I'm really appreciative to stand by these gentlemen today. And I'm just grateful for all the incredible work they're doing to protect West Virginians and to keep people safe. Now happy to answer any questions from the media.
Kind of got a procedural one and the related one. I assume it didn't take you 6 months to convince these 3 Willow Pressure employees to sign the memo. What was it? Wait for the training? I mean, what?
No, we're having discussions as we're doing this, and we got out in front early on one of the initiatives, and we wanted to follow up with the remaining ones. And I'm proud of our team. You know, I think the folks over at Homeland and State Police and Corrections and the Guard, they've been proactive in doing a lot of the transformation of state government. So there's a lot that's been on the plate, but I can tell you that West Virginia is fully engaged and that we're really proud to announce this partnership today. But, you know, obviously you have to have conversations and exchange the paperwork and do things the right way. But these guys have a lot of work on their plate, all of them, and I think they've been doing a great job.
What's the role of the National Guard? This is pretty obvious what corrections will do since they have people in custody and the policing function of state police. But what's envisioned for the National Guard?
Jim, do you want to chat about that?
Certainly. Thank you, Governor. As I mentioned earlier, we have approximately 175 certified law enforcement officers in the National Guard who will be undergoing the training, and they will assist ICE in those types of duties that Joe talked about, whether that's assisting ICE officers on the street, working on paperwork, as necessary. They're allowed under law, because they're certified law enforcement officers and they will have the ICE training, they will be allowed to assist law enforcement in law enforcement type duties, but that's restricted to our law enforcement officers.
So none of the people that ICE has in our correctional system now, other than being arrested maybe for a crime they committed in West Virginia, our state law enforcement agencies haven't been involved in picking these people up.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure we can get you the answer if somebody behind me.
I think to date, it's been limited to the Department of Corrections, because we had announced that earlier this year, but now we're announcing the expansion to state police and to National Guard. Any other questions from the media? Brett, WTAP? Anyone?
I got an unrelated question.
You know, I'm telling you, these open press conferences, just make sure you cover the main show. Half the time we hear that the people ask different questions, and then you come up to an event and that's why we're up there? I'm just kidding with you, Bob. Go.
Paraphrase the conversation that I didn't actually hear, but I understand that President Hardesty from the state school board is extremely critical of the position you've taken on the vaccine, and how basically, I think there was a comment made that we need to teach civics so we can understand the civic function.
Yeah, you know, look, I mean,
of government, and I guess my question is now school is starting in some places. What should people do?
Look, at the end of the day, and I've said this, the school board has been dramatically overreaching. And I think that there's just an utter lack of understanding of what the law is, and that we're trying to breathe meaning into 2 different laws in order to ensure that religious freedom is being respected. And, you know, some people, they don't want to go through and do the hard work and read the different laws and see how this works. And also now we have 2 courts that have upheld our position. It's a strong position. You know, obviously we're going to keep pressing away in court, or ultimately have the legislature take action. So we're going to proceed. At the end of the day, this is something that will change. It's simply a question of when. And just deeply disappointing that the school board is overreaching and not recognizing that they're out of touch with West Virginia on not only this issue, but a lot of the other issues that have come to the fore. And we're going to have a lot of broader discussions about the role of the school board, because we need to make sure that there's political accountability with all officials in West Virginia government.
All right, so that was the West Virginia Governor, Patrick Morrisey, speaking alongside other officials there, taking some off-topic questions. But the goal of that news conference was to talk about West Virginia sending National Guard troops over to D.C. We also know that South Carolina and Ohio have done the same thing. We do have to head to our final 2-minute commercial break right now, but a lot more live coverage coming up in just a few. I'm Josh Breslow, and you're watching Live Now from Fox. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 9:58 on the East Coast and 6:58 on the West Coast. Do want to take you out live right now, as it looks like a news conference is getting underway with NYPD after 11 people were shot at a Brooklyn club this morning.
Ready, Glenn? Good morning. The information I'm about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. I'm going to brief you on a shooting incident that occurred earlier this morning in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn. The details are as follows. At approximately 3:27 a.m., the 911 call center started receiving multiple 911 calls about a shooting inside of 903 Franklin Avenue, which is a lounge known as Taste of the City. Officers arrived within minutes of the first 911 calls and found numerous gunshot victims inside of the location. Currently, we have identified 11 victims ranging in age from 27 to 61, 8 males and 3 females. 3 of the victims have already been pronounced: 1 male age 27, 1 male age 35, and 1 male of an unknown age. The 8 remaining victims are at local area hospitals with what is being described right now as non-life-threatening injuries. We are withholding victims' names pending family notifications, and the investigation into this incident is ongoing. What we know preliminarily is that there was a dispute inside of the crowded club that led to the shooting. We have multiple shooters involved in this shooting, and we have recovered at least 36 shell casings so far from what appears to be multiple guns. At this time, no one is in custody. Our detectives are canvassing available CCTV video in and around the location. Our detectives have also recovered a firearm in the vicinity of Bedford Avenue and Eastern Parkway. We're investigating at this time whether this firearm was tied to the shooting incident. I'll now take a few brief questions.
Any questions? Yes, what's the magnitude of this type of shooting?
Well, we have, 11 people shot? 11 people shot, 3 dead. It's a terrible shooting that occurred in the city of New York. There's no other way to...
It's been a pretty quiet, lower numbers of shootings.
Yeah, I mean, we have the lowest number of shooting incidents and shooting victims 7 months into the year that we've seen on record in the city of New York. Something like this is, of course, thank God, an anomaly, and it's a terrible thing that happened this morning, but we're going to investigate and get to the bottom of what went down.
Next, CBS. Is there any history of a prior shootings taking place inside this location or lounge?
Yeah, we need to confirm this, but I did hear that there was a shooting at this location, non-fatal, in, I believe, November of 2024.
Anyone else? Were there any, you're aware of a metal detector, anything where they would have checked the weapons?
I don't know at this time.
All right, thank you, everyone.
All right, and it did appear at one point there that we were getting a new news conference that was coming in from NYPD, but as you saw there, it was actually a refeed of the one from just a couple hours ago. We did want to make sure to play that for you here. It was obviously better quality than what we saw earlier today, but again, NYPD sharing that 11 people were shot inside of that very crowded club overnight, and 3 people have passed away from their injuries, but 8 of them were taken to hospitals with varying injuries, where we're going to get some more information on that, and we'll of course keep you updated as we do get those details. For now, I do want to get right back into some of the other big headlines that we are covering here as we take a live look over the White House in D.C. We know that President Zelenskyy of Ukraine is expected to meet with President Trump tomorrow at the White House. That meeting is set for Monday afternoon, so it is going to happen in the afternoon hours. We have not received any times or anything of that nature just yet, but we do hope to learn more as the day progresses, and we'll make sure to bring you all of those details and live feeds right here on Live Now from Fox in real time and uninterrupted. We also know right now that Zelenskyy is meeting with several European leaders, including the leaders of places like Britain and France, also Germany involved in the talks, and the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. We got some of those images a bit earlier on today, but again, Zelenskyy will head to Washington for that meeting with Trump tomorrow. I do want to send it over to Stephanie Bennett with Fox, as she does have much more on the situation unfolding.
Reactions are pouring in from world leaders and those on the ground in Ukraine and Russia. European leaders released a joint statement, including the UK Prime Minister, French President, German Chancellor, and Italian Prime Minister, saying they welcomed President Trump's efforts to end the war, but said the next step must be further talks with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, saying they're also ready to work to make a trilateral summit happen. The European statement, also signed by EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, the Polish Prime Minister, Finnish President, and European Council President, said Ukraine must have ironclad security guarantees to defend itself, while Europe will continue to uphold pressure and strengthen sanctions on Russia. European leaders have been invited to attend talks between Zelenskyy and Trump in Washington on Monday, according to reports. Residents in Moscow say a major breakthrough was unexpected during the Alaska summit, but the fact that the meeting happened was a positive sign.
We have some preconditions. Trump has different ones, but I still think that this is positive. Progress is going on. There are some meetings, negotiations, and we hope for the best.
While in Kyiv, residents have reacted with skepticism.
There are not any results, and we don't know if there will be, although we always expect something and hope for it.
Despite these meetings, the back and forth attacks continue. A day before the summit, at least 13 people were wounded in a Ukrainian drone attack on apartment blocks in southern Russia. And overnight, Ukraine's Air Force said Russia launched 85 drones and ballistic missiles across its front lines. Coalition of the Willing Leaders will meet on Sunday ahead of Zelensky's visit to D.C. on Monday. In London, Stephanie Bennett, Fox News.
Stephanie, thank you so much. And that meeting underway right now as we speak. Also want to get to another topic here, all related to this, as papers with U.S. State Department markings were found on a hotel printer in Anchorage, Alaska, ahead of that closed-door meeting between President Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin. NPR reporting the 8 pages appear to be produced by U.S. staff and accidentally left behind shared precise locations, meeting times, and phone numbers of U.S. government employees. One page disclosed that Trump planned to give an American bald eagle desk statue as a gift to Putin. The discovery was reportedly made by guests at Hotel Captain Cook. That is a 4-star hotel about 20 minutes from the base where the two leaders met. On Saturday, White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly told NPR that the papers were a, quote, multi-page lunch menu and suggested leaving the information on a public printer was not a security breach. I want to talk about this, but also the talks that are expected to take place between Trump and Zelensky, as well as European leaders tomorrow. Let's bring in a friend of the show here, Ivana Stradner, research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Ivana, thank you so much. I know you're busy, so we definitely appreciate you joining us here 2 days in a row.
Always pleasure.
All right, so first off, I do want to ask you about these documents that NPR reports were found. I know you took a look at them. We saw a couple of them in that photo provided by NPR. What do you make of that? Is that any kind of national security breach of any kind?
I like to call bullets and strikes always. And I think when we were talking about signal, what some people call it signal gate several months ago, that was significantly more serious. I read the full documents. And yes, in addition to lunch menu, there were locations, there were some phone numbers. But what this really tells me is not a particular security, some sensitive information breach. It's more the level of unprofessionalism. And that's something that we need to address and the administration needs to pay attention to. What really was on the menu that's less important, as I mentioned, there were some numbers and some locations, but it was more or less everything that we already knew. There were not plans about whether what the meeting, what they will discuss, some sensitive information, some declassified information. That's something that I didn't see.
Do you think it's going to lead to any kind of changes within the administration? I would imagine that they're going to say to the employee or employees who left that on the hotel printer, hey, you can't do that in the future because, again, as you mentioned, we're not talking about necessarily classified information, but it has a lot of details about what was going to happen during that meeting and those phone numbers.
You're absolutely right. So this absolutely has to be addressed. This is significantly more than a lunch menu, but definitely less than some very severe security breaches. So this just shows also the level of unprofessionalism, and there should be consequences for this. What worries me more is that when we have situations like this, including what happened a few months ago, that can also raise certain questions about our allies and our trust. This is how you truly build, but you can also ruin your reputation. And that's something that we need to be careful when we talk about this particular breach.
All right, let's move on to talking about tomorrow's meeting. That is going to be a big meeting between two world leaders there, talking about President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine. We saw what happened several months ago in the Oval Office, a big explosion, so to speak, between President Trump and Zelensky. What do we expect for tomorrow? Could we see anything like that, or do we think maybe their relationship has become a little less fractured over time?
You're right that several months ago we saw a disaster in the White House. This time around, I truly hope it will not happen, also because Zelenskyy will have support from our European allies, but more importantly, because President Trump is seeing through Putin's lies, and he also understands the position of Zelenskyy. So I do not expect, I hope it will not happen, something what we saw several months ago. I think what we saw on Friday was a very important meeting, but the one that we are going to see tomorrow will be the most important meeting, because then we are going to know what is the base, what Ukraine is willing to give up or to gain, what are their conditions. My concern is that there are more and more talks about land swaps, or that Ukraine should cede certain parts of its country. And that is actually not going to happen. I don't see that's going to happen, because Zelenskyy, he cannot accept that blackmail. That's a typical, Russia's KGB game, which is to raise stakes so high. And then, so Zelenskyy rejects that offer. So Putin can always say, you see, Zelenskyy is not a reliable partner. So that's the game that we should actually watch for tomorrow. And I truly hope also that President Trump will be reminded that this war, it was not Ukraine that started this war, that this war was started by Russia. And not only in 2022, but 2014. And we already know who to blame for this war and what consequences are going to be. Unfortunately, Russian propaganda loves to portray Zelenskyy as an irrational, unreliable partner, and we should not fall for that. Meanwhile, the game that I'm very concerned about is how Russia is pushing for business developments between the US and Russia. The end goal is to claim, well, who cares about Ukraine? We have more important things to do. We have business to do. And that's part of Putin's game, to buy more time, to make sure that there is a short-term ceasefire. And as I mentioned, to reposition his military to strengthen and then to continue. And I do believe that President Zelenskyy will reiterate something along those lines tomorrow, making sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to Russia's protracted war. Speaking of the same page, one thing that Russia truly wants is to destroy our center of gravity in the West, which is alliances. And I think it's tremendously important tomorrow that all European leaders and NATO allies, along with the United States, speak with one voice. That is going to be a nightmare for Putin.
I want to ask, because yesterday when we spoke a little less than 24 hours ago, we know that European leaders had been invited to attend, but now we know that several of them will actually attend this meeting. We're talking about the leaders in France, Britain, as well as Germany. How significant is that?
It is very important, as I mentioned, that we speak with one voice. But I think it's also very important to note two things: that there is no security and peace in Europe also without the US leadership. Of course, we are not doing this only for purely idealistic reasons, because peace in Europe also means peace in the United States. And the second thing that I also want to emphasize, Europe has to absolutely do more. And I also see numerous positive movements already when it comes to weapons delivery, when it comes to more sanctions on Russia. So I think tomorrow's meeting will be tremendously important also to show that unity between the United States and Europe.
All right, Ivana Stradner, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help discuss all of this further. Obviously, there is so much to this. Is there anything else that you want to add here before I let you go?
The only thing that I would like to add is that we definitely have to understand Putin's long-term plans. There is no simple solution to this war. We have to be patient, but we also have to be determined and not to fear any escalations, because after all, Europe and the United States are significantly stronger than Russia.
All right. Thank you again, Ivana, for taking the time to join us for a second day in a row. We appreciate it.
Always pleasure.
And I do want to pop this up on your screen because we are getting a post from President Donald Trump this morning. We showed you one of them a bit earlier, but this one coming in as he says, big progress on Russia. Stay tuned. Posting this here about 24 hours ahead of the arrival of President Zelenskyy of Ukraine as the two meet. Alongside those European leaders, we're going to have extensive coverage of all of that tomorrow as it does happen. And of course, we'll bring you all of the coverage here on Live Now from Fox, those live images in real time. That is what we do here. So again, you can watch all of that on Live Now from Fox, set for tomorrow. Going to head to a quick break at 10:15 on the East Coast and 7:15 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and you're watching Live Now from Fox. We'll be right back. Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 10:17 on the East Coast and 7:17 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'm here for the next several hours to bring you all of your top stories, live events, and breaking news from across the country and across the world on this Sunday, August 17th. Do want to take you out to this live image that we do have popping up on our screen right now. This is outside of the White House. Now, it's not clear if anyone is going to be speaking, but as you can see there on your screen in the center, the microphones are set up and ready to go. If any officials here, including President Trump, are to step out and make some comments, we're going to bring those to you in full, live, uninterrupted, as we always do on Live Now from Fox. Not sure if that is going to happen, but again, you can see right there on your screen, the microphone is set up and ready to go. Taking a live look over the White House at this hour, we have talked a lot about the federal takeover of the Washington Police Department and our on-the-Hill coverage here with our Fox 5 DC team. And Tom Fitzgerald did continue. We have not played this portion just yet, but I do want to play it for you here as he talks DC crime.
Welcome back to Fox 5's On the Hill Live this Sunday morning. We have seen protests over the weekend from D.C. residents who are opposing President Trump's takeover of D.C. and his attack on the city's autonomy and home rule. How did we get here? I want to welcome in D.C. Council Chair Phil Mendelson this morning. Obviously, this has been an historic week. This has been a tumultuous week. Were you surprised by this? The mayor said she wasn't surprised by the takeover.
I think we can be both, surprised and not surprised. So the attacks on home rule are not new, but the extent of what happened, especially over the course of the week, was very disturbing. And it was harmful to the city because what people hear around the country is the city is the worst in terms of crime in the world, not just the United States. And that's scary to people, and that hurts business, that hurts economic activity. And we know that factually that's not correct.
Was the triggering event for this the carjacking or the attempted carjacking of the individual who used to work for Elon Musk's Doge?
Well, I don't want to try to get in the head of the president, so I don't know if that's what the triggering event was. I mean, I've heard a lot of explanations, a distraction to try to change what the news is, but I think the bottom line is that the district has a different status vis-a-vis the federal government than any other city or state. We are a federal district under the Constitution. And so the federal government has the ability to do things with the district that they can't do anywhere. And that's historical. I mean, the first emancipation under Abraham Lincoln was in the district, not the Emancipation Proclamation. Things can happen in the district that can't happen, that the federal government can't do elsewhere.
How concerned are you right now about the larger question of the home rule? Because there is currently legislation in the House and the Senate right now, co-sponsored between Senator Mike Lee and Congressman Andy Lobos, which would end home rule. Could that happen?
Well, I'm very concerned. At the same time, I don't want to be alarmist. I think that the senator and the congressman don't know what they're asking. Running a $21 billion government, taking over entirely. The federal government didn't do a good job when they had control for a century. The government needs to be much more connected to the citizenry it governs, and that's a tall order. On the other hand, there's no question we've seen an erosion, increasing attacks on the district and its self-governance, and so that is concerning.
A lot of talk has gone on about the 2023 crime spike, but there was something that took place before the crime spike. Council was very involved in was the revision of the criminal code in 2022, which critics said reduced penalties, got rid of some sentencing, and was just too soft on crime to the point where Democrats and then President Biden overturned the entire thing, despite the fact that the mayor had vetoed it. The council overruled her veto. Was that a mistake? Did that help put you on this road to where you are right now?
Well, I do think that controversy hurt the district in terms of its, members of Congress feeling emboldened to attack the district. I disagree with regard to the merits. I think actually the criminal code reform strengthened our criminal code, but it's very easy to demagogue public safety and crime. It's very easy to do that. And you can cherry pick a particular crime and say, oh, look, they reduced the maximum sentence from 47 years, which nobody ever got, to 25 years, which most people weren't getting. So it's a fraught issue, but public safety has always been a top issue for the federal government.
As the council chair, you occupy a position where you have to deal big picture and with individuals who are on that council. Some of them are to the left of you, some of them might be a little bit.
But also the first major hurricane. Just yesterday, we saw it reach that Category 5 status, and I do want to bring in meteorologist Michael Estime over at Fox Weather to talk more about the current track and what to expect next. Good morning, Michael.
Josh, listen, my friend, always great to see you. Wish we could talk on terms that weren't so, dangerous, but let me jump into it, Josh, because you nailed it right off the top. This is not just our first hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season, but it is the first major hurricane. That's a Category 3 hurricane or stronger. And Josh, just to put it into perspective for you, we went from what was a little kitten to a big ferocious tiger in literally 24 hours. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Let me give you a quick little update. As of 10:30, we are expecting another update from the National Hurricane Center in about 30 minutes. So you want to make sure that you stick with us here, not just on Fox Live, but also on Fox Weather. Current advisory as of 8 o'clock this morning, winds at 125 miles per hour. That a bona fide Category 3 hurricane. And as you mentioned when we showed you that camera off the top, listen, Puerto Rico is getting super soaked with rain. Here's what it looked like. This was yesterday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, 75 mile per hour winds, and we ramped those winds up by nearly 90 to 95 miles per hour in just 24 hours. We literally call that, quote, rapid intensification. That, though, is when you see winds increase by 35 miles per hour in 24 hours. This was 90 plus miles per hour in 24 hours. So almost a super rapid intensification is what we're calling it. Josh, here's what things look like right now. Here's the island of Puerto Rico, as you know, has just over 3 million folks there. Here's parts of the northern Lesser Antilles. We have, of course, the British Virgin Islands and U.S. Virgin Islands. Let me do a deep dive into Puerto Rico real quick because we have a lot of friends and family down this way. Here's where the capital of San Juan, Puerto Rico is, just for perspective. Here's where Ponce is on the southern end of the island. And look at that band, that spiral band of very heavy rain. It is prompting considerable, you don't see this very often, considerable flash flood warnings for the island of Puerto Rico. This is south of San Juan, so south of the capital city, where it has been raining cats and dogs. Unfortunately, in Puerto Rico, if you've not been to Puerto Rico, number one, beautiful, beautiful island to go to. However, there's a lot of mountains. And those mountains, when you start to see just a ton of rain, can lead to landslides, rock slides, and mudslides. We haven't heard of any reports of that just yet, but that is in the cards. We then jump over to St. Thomas. I know that many of you have perhaps taken a wonderful cruise to St. Thomas, some of the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, great places to go to. Not now, though. Here's where St. Thomas is. This is where the airport is. And again, flights in and out of the airport certainly going to be canceled or delayed at least through today, just given the amount of rain and wind that they're seeing, not just there, but also on St. John Island as well. Bigger picture looks like this. Here's where the Dominican Republic is at. A lot of folks vacation to the eastern end of the island. We call it Punta Cana, beautiful resort destination. Unfortunately, they are also fighting through the rain, showers, and storms. The good news, though, in Punta Cana, in the Dominican Republic, is the fact that that rain is going to be a lot less intense. The rain, or the wind rather, also less intense. So that's the good news there. We'll set things into motion for you through not just the day today, but into tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. And look at Puerto Rico, look at St. Thomas, St. Croix, right? U.S. and British Virgin Islands still undergoing more rain. So that rain's going to be with us for for at least the next, say, 24 to 36 hours. Next question, how much rain are we talking, right? Well, you'll note that our forecast models on the southern end of the island, not just of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but also throughout Puerto Rico, that's at least on the low end, another 3 to as much as 8 inches of rain. Isolated spots could pick up even more than that. Some spots, by the way, have already seen over 9 inches of rain, with perhaps a little bit more on the way. Rain, flooding is going to be an issue. Let's talk about the winds real quick. Currently, Category 3 hurricane, as we mentioned before, one of our buoys right now in the middle of the Atlantic, registering wind gusts over 45 miles per hour. But the winds are going to push all that water right up along the beaches, especially on the southern tips of the island. So here's where we are in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Here we are in Puerto Rico. The southern base of the island, where that wind is getting really just pushed up against, that's going to be where we see the worst rip currents. Those could be life-threatening, that undertow that literally can drag you out to sea. That's going to be a big issue through the day today and tomorrow. And I want to point this out, Josh, just for a quick second, is the fact that we're actually expecting for Erin to strengthen. It is once again moving into an area where the water's really nice and warm. It's juicy, if you will. The atmosphere has a lot of moisture to work with and play with. So we're actually expecting it to strengthen. The good news is, out of all of this, and feel free to say hallelujah if you want, is the fact that this is going to miss any direct land impacts. Let me repeat that. We are not expecting and not forecasting a landfalling hurricane. Hallelujah. Because this could have been absolutely catastrophic, if not devastating, if that were the case. We're expecting this to be well off the eastern seaboard of the United States. So friends and family in Florida, if you're joining us from the Space Coast, Kennedy Space Center area, up toward the First Coast, toward Jacksonville Beach, this is not going to be a huge impact for you. Secondary impacts, yeah, you'll see the big surf, the big waves, right? Maybe a couple of showers and a few more, a couple of thunderstorms, but nothing that's going to be crazy or that's going to slow down your midweek. That happens by Wednesday. And then note that we're expecting Bermuda. This is not expected to make a direct impact on Bermuda either. So any cruise plans that you might have out that way, again, good news is this should stay at bay. Now, the wind field is going to expand as this moves into cooler water. It's interesting. You think about like a ballerina spinning around in a circle, right? When the ballerina brings her arms together like this, she spins really quickly, but then as she opens up her arms, right, she slows down. That's what's going to happen with this hurricane. It's going to slow down, but its wind field is going to expand by 600 miles or so. What that means is for friends and family along the Virginia Beach area toward the Cape, this is Cape Hatteras, in the Carolinas, Wilmington, it means that you're going to be fighting through some pretty significant winds. By the time we get to Wednesday and then into Thursday, we're talking winds over 40 to 50 miles per hour. So yeah, if you were thinking about making it a beach day, not with 50-mile-per-hour winds, you're going to get a free microdermabrasion is what you'll get if you're laying on the beach with all that sand blowing in your face by Wednesday, Thursday in parts of the Carolinas, that's for sure. Wave heights, this could be significant too. Big old waves, not just through parts of the Bahamas. Here's where the Bahamas are by tomorrow. But as we head toward Cape Hatteras, now if there's one little bit of good news, I did hear, and some of our viewers have shared with us, that in Virginia Beach, there's a big surfing competition that's taking place. So surfers are probably going to enjoy that. But listen, if you're not a surfer, stay out of the water. Because when we're talking about wave heights between 6 to 9, perhaps even upwards of 12 feet, that can be absolutely dangerous, if not life-threatening. I don't want you taking the kids to the beach this weekend, that's for sure. Stick with the pool. So again, a little recap on what Thursday should begin to look like in terms of our waves. And then, Josh, I'm going to leave you with this, because the other thing that I don't want us to forget is the fact that we're in the middle of hurricane season. The height of hurricane season is just 24 days away on September the 10th. And this is what I'm actually almost more concerned about, is the fact that we have a disturbance. You can see it right here, cluster of showers and thunderstorms. It's expected in the next couple of days to move into this region, gain strength, gain momentum, and gain more energy. This is the system where some of our forecast models are suggesting that we could see it, and it's going to be highlighted right here. We could see this system develop into a little something. I won't call it a tropical storm or hurricane just yet, but it could develop into one. And then perhaps our long-term forecast models are suggesting that it could move into and across the Lesser Antilles into what we call the Caribbean Sea. So south of Puerto Rico, south of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, perhaps move into Cuba, and then into the Gulf of America. That is what we're keeping our eyes on in the next week. So you'll want to make sure that you hone in with us on Fox Weather for that, because that, to me, Josh, could be actually more significant, more dangerous to the United States mainland than what we're seeing with Hurricane Erin. Josh, my last graphic, I'll leave you with this, is the fact that we still have 84% of hurricane season just yet. I know we got a big bad storm out there right now, but we are nowhere even close to being done with hurricane season. So friends in Florida, along the Georgia coastline, Carolina coastline, if you've not gotten your hurricane preparedness kits ready and set. This is an absolute must do in, say, the next weekish or so, just to be safe and free from harm. Josh, it's something that